Welcome to the Modern Craftsman podcast. Today we have a good friend of ours, Ryan Mulkeen, on. I would assume that most of you probably know who Ryan is at this point, but if you don't, he is head of marketing, I believe vice president of marketing and communications over at Kuchen Brothers, who we've had a relationship with, a friendship with over the past 15 or so years, at least the past decade. So a lot of good information today. We talk about marketing techniques, how to stay ahead of the curve, how to be relatable to contractors in general. I think that marketing for contractors and to contractors is a very unique skill set. We talk about their classical molding collection, how that really helped shape my client base and my market and the projects that I was doing. We talk about their product expo that they put on every 2 years, what the impetus was for the actual Modern Craftsman moniker. We talk about his renovation of his home that he recently completed. So all really good information, a great conversation. I always appreciate having Ryan on, and honestly, a lot of laughs on this one. So I hope everyone enjoys this as much as I did.
Yeah, a little bit of ball busting in the beginning, middle, and end. So stick around. Guys, this podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. Imagine the possibilities when you can offer your clients more than just walls and windows. With Andersen, you're not just building a structure, you're crafting an experience that connects people to the world beyond their walls. Their windows and doors bring in natural light, fresh air, and stunning views, creating living spaces that truly embrace the outdoors.
Whether it's expansive glass doors that open to a patio or floor-to-ceiling windows that frame a breathtaking landscape, Andersen products provide the flexibility and performance you need. They're designed to withstand the elements while offering unmatched beauty and functionality. Refine the boundaries of living spaces by choosing Andersen windows and doors and give your clients the luxury of living beyond their walls. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com.
This podcast is also brought to you by Buildertrend. Ever feel like you're managing selections is an endless headache? Well, from clients changing their minds to vendors missing deadlines, it's chaos, but Buildertrend can help you simplify that process.
Don't just take our word for it, though. Check out this on-demand webinar with design build expert Piper Stromat of Boutique Living by Curate. She'll show you exactly how to use Buildertrend to transform selections management into a smooth, stress-free workflow. Head to buildertrend.com/MC selections to watch now and get inspired to impress your clients with an enjoyable selections process.
This podcast is also brought to you by Velux. Skylights are a surprising way to add interest to a home, and we hear that homeowners are so happy after installing Velux skylights that they wish they installed more. Velux's cut, place, and seal installation makes it easy to add natural light to your build. An innovative technology including built-in rain sensors, solar power, and 3 layers of leak protection makes skylights a great addition to any project.
And most builders agree they're even easier to install than a vertical window while still creating an impressive space. Visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to learn more about their industry-leading installation and warranty. Fun fact, I installed 3 skylights at my mom's this past week. I had to blow some snow off the roof, but we got it done. It's a beautiful day to be installing skylights. And they did go in very easily, so thanks, Velux. Where are you? At home?
No, I'm in the office.
No, you're not.
I put
Are you really?
Yeah, I am.
Oh.
It looks like he's in a home.
There's Amy.
What's up?
Making coffee, even though there's a huge sign right over the doorknob that says "Do not disturb."
Recording.
Recording. A red light.
A red light. And now she's adding milk. Looks like she's getting coffee for other people.
She's going to get the frothing machine out that's just like, and then the thing that spins it.
Yeah.
Are those things new? Like the little, I swear they've.
It's at least 5 years old.
Okay, that's pretty new.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was in my drawer forever, and I had no idea what it was for.
Yeah.
It's like
It works really well.
It works great. Like, and then one day I saw my wife using it. She has that like AG1 stuff, and she's mixing it. I'm like, that's what that thing is.
But if you have like an espresso, it has enough of a froth on it. You don't really need it. I mean, I guess you're going to put milk in, but
I don't have Nespresso, so
I know you think it's fancy because it sounds like espresso, but it's not.
I thought
Nespresso.
Nespresso I feel like is something new because I always thought Nespresso was nasty. I guess it's like
No, it's great.
fancy coffee now.
Are you
Though. I
confusing
always thought
it
it was
with
just like
Nesquik?
fake. No, I always thought it was just fake coffee.
No, it's not like a instant coffee.
Yeah, that's what I always thought it was. So today we have on Ryan Mulkeen. I was looking up a little information about you. You are the vice president of marketing and communications at Kukin Brothers. That's impressive.
Thanks, Tyler. What else? What else were you actually looking up, though? Why did you care about my title?
Well, I don't really know why, to be honest. I think it's just like my standard operating procedure for guests. And I was like, I'm going to look up his LinkedIn and I forgot you went to Villanova, but that checks out completely. Boat shoes, things along those lines. No, but I knew you'd worked for Kukin for a long time. So Kukin is, for people who don't know, a family-owned building material supplier, right? Residential, commercial. And you've worked for them for 22 years, which I would say speaks volumes about your loyalty, the company culture, or maybe both.
Yeah. I think it's just 20. It's just 20. So
is it 20?
Yeah, I know the gray hairs make you think
it's still that's
at least 22. But
so I know that you wanted to. There's a few things we want to get into today, but as far as how our paths crossed, it was probably 15 years ago. My wife had an interiors blog,
that's right.
and I ended up at one of your events, the Build Show, the Live Building Expo.
That was hold on.
Product Expo.
That was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
but there's a backstory. Before you guys were there, Nick, Tyler was there with Rachel. Because
I did not know this.
Yeah, Brent Hull was actually giving a talk, I think, and I think somehow I came across a blog that Rachel was writing and had reached out to her first to see if she wanted to do some like ghost writing for us. So then she came up to the Product Expo.
A like 27-year-old blonde chick.
You're painting right.
Had no idea at the time.
Ryan.
Didn't know what she looked like.
Yeah, I had no idea what she looked like. It was just a blog that I came across. And you guys both came up to the expo to listen to Brent Hull talk. And then I think it was probably like a year or two. She had no interest in writing for us whatsoever. So she came to the show.
Work.
Yeah, she probably was doing something. Unlike you. You came in like a little hipster. You had like a t-shirt on and like a wool beanie hat, like rolled up over your ears. Yeah. I think like cargo pants on.
Yeah, definitely.
Trying to look the
kinds
part
that
of
ripped
a
off
contractor.
at the knees.
Exactly. And like a ruler.
Yeah.
A ruler in your back pocket. But then I think at some point then I realized that you had created your own Instagram account. And so we had just started with Instagram, I think probably a year or two after that. I don't know when it really started becoming big, but that's how Kukin Brothers really got engaged with more builders around the country through Instagram because, we had our molding collection and we were posting a lot of information about crown moldings and our casings and the classical molding collection and somehow got into the mix with builders and remodelers. And this was Instagram at the beginning where it was post a photo, spend 20, 30 minutes typing up a story about that photo or about that image, pre-video, pre-Instagram live, and all of that. And so we could engage with builders and remodelers, and people were asking us questions about our molding. So that's when I think I came across you, Tyler, TRG, Nick. I came across you a little bit later. I don't know what project it was, but you were doing this like crazy casing buildup of all raw poplar.
Oh yeah.
And I remember seeing that
and saying about that project the other day, actually.
Where was that? Charlestown? No.
No,
It was very. It was just. I think it was your own. It wasn't your own house. It was just before your own house. Just before you started recording with Doug.
Yeah, there was. I'm pretty sure it was this project I got looped into. My friend was renovating, and he called me. He goes, "I have a nightmare client, and I can't do anything right, and I'm not that great of a carpenter, and I need you to come in and do all the windows." And she had spec'd all the material. I mean, I was fine with her. Like, she wasn't a nightmare for me because I did what I said I would do. But yeah, I remember it was all built up raw poplar, and I built them all in the driveway, and I went one by one and just slid them into the windows. I mean, the house was a disaster. But I remember it was when Todd Wilson was doing all the photos, and he came out and shot it as I was installing it. I don't remember what town that was in. It wasn't Charlestown.
Yeah.
Though. But yeah, I didn't realize, like, so I just looked it up. I started my Instagram February 2014, which is crazy.
11 years ago.
That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, so it was 15 years ago. So I'm going to be super kind and super nice here for a minute, and then I'll get back to my normal self.
It's just going to be awkward.
It's going to be really
uncomfortable.
It's going to be really difficult for me.
It's not going to feel natural.
Yeah. So if you want to like just press pause or mute for a while.
Can I go grab a cup of coffee real quick?
Yeah. Ask Amy if that's a good idea. So 15 years later, honestly, I mean, there's not a lot of people that I remain in touch with in life 15 years later. And obviously, I think you and I can probably banter with the best of them, but I do genuinely value our relationship, your expertise in the industry, and all the opportunities that you've provided for not only myself, TRG, Modern Craftsman, and within, the past decade, there hasn't been a time where I feel I've needed help. I had a question, whether it was a formal partnership, getting me materials last minute down to South Jersey, insight within business, even life advice, that you weren't willing to step up and give me a hand. So obviously it's an honor to have you on the podcast. And I encourage everyone who's listening to this to look up Pukin Brothers, reach out to them, touch base with Ryan, my buddy Gaff over there, for the work that they do. Because if you aren't, you're doing yourself a disservice. But that is definitely enough of me being nice. I think we should move ahead and
who were you just talking about, Nick?
Me giving you a hard time and testing your patience.
Well, the feeling of mutual respect there, Tyler. I mean, early on, I think it was when we were on Instagram, there's certain people that you click with, and I think that you and I hit it off. There was never a positive. That's why this was really weird, because I think it's more busting chops relationship than it is ever positive. So that this is uncomfortable. But
I remember driving up to you one time to meet for lunch, and I'm pretty sure I texted you like every single mile that I passed on the road, and it's like a 60-mile job or a 60-mile drive. And I'm like, mile 59. But yeah. But at the end of the day, like I said, I appreciate everything that you've done for us. And I really do, like, your company, sponsorship, not sponsorship, partnership aside, like, I use your products and I use your company and I deal with your company because of the service that's provided and also the products. And that's not even, we don't have a sponsorship now or anything like that, but like, I've always used your product, not because of partnership, but because it's something that I can believe in, and the service is there.
I would think that's what we strive to do. While we have a lot of services for homeowners, to us, the relationship with the building professional, whether it's a remodeler, a custom home builder, a developer in a light commercial, or an architect or an interior designer, that's our lifeline. And I think what you all were doing early on to raise the bar for the industry was something that we wouldn't have credibility saying, hey, if you did X, Y, and Z, you could build a better business. Like, we're not in business to teach people how to be better business leaders. We're here to supply high quality materials and explain why they're high quality material, explain why, they'll help, keep your reputation high among your customers. But when you all started doing the Modern Craftsman thing, to me and to our organization, it was 100%. That's something that we need to support, because you all were spending so much of your own time, effort, and energy to raise the bar for the industry. And it was something that I've never seen since I started in 2004. And I think you all speak about how you learned within the industry, and it was difficult getting information out from older generation of builders and remodelers, and everybody kept close guard to their partners and to their trade secrets. And through Instagram, watching it unfold before our eyes, you all were just completely turning that upside its head. People were posting photos because they wanted to teach somebody about something, or somebody was posting a photo to ask a question, and instantly the positivity that people were offering up information was just crazy. And to watch that real time unfold was like, hey, this is really cool. Something is changing here with information flow, and we want to be a part of it and support it in some way. So we were really fortunate, I think, to get in. We had a little bit of an angle with the molding collection, and somehow we could engage with you all. I mean, there were so many Instagram people back in 2014 to 2018, I would say, that I've just been able to establish relationships with and still stay connected with to this day. If somebody were to reach out, the communication lines that were open early on really helped teach us and educate and understand what was happening out in the field, and helped us develop and grow our marketing plan, our marketing strategy, and how we become a better supplier to our customers.
So you were much of the driving force behind the Instagram, right? Like, as far as marketing your business?
Yeah, because it was, early on. So, I mean, I think this is where you and I hit it off. We both had young kids early on. I think that we would be messaging back and forth until, the wee hours of the morning, because we were probably up with a kid and, at home, going to be awake all night long anyway. So you could post a photo and then just kind of see what's going on. And so for me to be able to understand how people were using the products that we were selling, getting instant feedback from the community, and say, hey, this is a product that we probably want to get behind, was very important. And then we could go out and ask questions about things, and then obviously, post our own photos and gauge reactions and change our marketing strategy accordingly.
So, asking for a friend, are you still running the Kukin Brothers Instagram account? Like, if somebody were to send something to that account?
Tyler, you're still not allowed to send personal questions to the @Kukin Brothers account.
I remember one time you're like, I'm giving up. I'm not running the account anymore, so don't send anything there,
dude. that quickly curtailed some of the things that were being sent to our DM, which was a positive.
Not me, of course.
No, it wasn't me.
But was that a hard sell? All right, Kukin Brothers is a small company by like building material supplier standards, right? You're you guys do ship. Yeah. So it's how many locations do you have? 8, 10?
9 locations. 9 locations in New Jersey, New York. So our core business is windows, doors, lumber, engineered wood, decking, obviously the molding collection.
But
hold on.
for 10,
I'm just curious. Sorry, Tyler. When you say windows, door, like in the order you just rattled off, is that the
like
highest
number one for us?
Yeah, like you immediately went to windows and doors. Is that your number one thing?
No, I would say, well, as far
Revenue
as top line sales revenue, lumber, engineered lumber, that category, lumber, plywood, as far as top line revenue. But anybody in the industry knows lumber is just not a super high margin category, but top line sales. Yeah. I mean, all of our 8 of our 9 stores are full lumber yards.
Got it.
And then windows, doors, molding, decking. They're major categories for us. We move a lot of material here in the local market, and then nationally with the molding collection, selling that to job site direct around the country. So,
yeah.
So 10 years ago, obviously, was it a hard sell at that point to be like, hey, let's start focusing creating content for social media and Instagram, like how strategic was that? And Nick and I are just getting into this now where we understand like the correlation between social and then developing those relationships and then moving them over into possibly an email list and a subscriber list and like how that benefits your business. Was that all strategic in doing so? Like, did you see that that's how that funnel was going to take shape, or was it like this is just a really good way to access our market?
On the marketing campaign side of things, like our website is our core. So everything that we do starts on our website. We have a blog. So if there's a new product that we're looking to introduce, we'll post it on the blog. We need to make sure that our employees and our building material specialists are all trained on that product. And that's the easiest way to distribute that information. The social thing, there was always a lot of concern about social. It was like, if you put yourself out there, I feel like early on, there was just so much negativity that the fear was that we're a building material supply company. At any moment, somebody could post a negative comment about your business. And as a smaller, privately held, family owned and operated business in our industry, everybody just said, how could you manage that communication flow? And how would you respond? So I think there was a little bit of fear early on. But once we started posting on Instagram, it was really nothing but positive. We did the obligatory posts on Facebook, and I think we had a Twitter account for a while. But as far as our posts on Instagram, nothing but positive. So it was an easy sell. And we would see that, we were gaining followers. We were communicating with different segments of the market that we never communicated with, even with no intention of selling around the country. As a result of it, it kind of just happened organically. But it gave us a voice too. If posting on Instagram and instantly replying to a comment and putting a photo up to react to somebody's comment or question gained credibility pretty much instantly, because it was if they were speaking to somebody, here, they could see that we were putting ourselves out there. So I don't think that on the social side of things, there was any major concern. I think just, industry wide, there was some concern about it, but there really wasn't much of a sell that had to be done here with the Kukin family, with the ownership.
Did you foresee sell? So, I mean, before we can get into that, the classical molding, I would assume, is what you're selling like across the country, right? That you're not shipping other stuff. So did you foresee that happening, or was that just like, hey, people are requesting this now that it's living on the internet and on Instagram? Now we have to figure out what we need to put in place to make that happen.
Yeah. It happened very organically and over time. I mean, it's been since probably around 2014 is when so about 10 years ago is when we first started developing the program. But it wasn't like we built out the entire program and had a whole campaign put in place. We learned how to package properly. Mm-hmm. We learned who to bid it with. We learned how to ship it. We learned which suppliers to stay away from. We learned the red flags about the people that were inquiring about they would ask certain questions, and you knew it wasn't going to be for a project for us.
What's a sample question?
That would be like a red flag.
Red flag, yeah.
When they want you to design the whole project for them, they start sending pictures, and you could just tell that.
What should I use here? What should I use there? Like, should I use this upside down? Blah blah blah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one thing too. We're not interior designers, or we don't want to get involved in that segment of the market. We want to partner with that segment to provide them with resources that can help them grow their business. But
well, I think even regionally, right? Like we have a huge, molding and trim manufacturer here in Boston. It's like any home you go into and you pull out casing, it's like, I know where that's from. Like, you just go down the street, you get it, and it's fine. But I remember when I was introduced to you guys years ago, I had brought the samples or you had shipped us samples, and we're looking at them like, this stuff looks so much better. And then it became kind of like a competition for us, where it was like we would get on a project. It's like, yeah, this is all great. Do you mind if we respec it? And we got, I mean, some people were pissed, like, no, like we've developed this, but
Yeah.
you know, anytime we've ever brought it into the project, it's always been a positive. I shouldn't say always. It's primarily been a positive. And for us now, it just becomes kind of standard anytime we're doing more traditional trim installs. And what I like about it is the fact that it's just different. It's something that, you know, people look at, and especially around here, it just looks more custom. So it's like, oh, that's not a standard profile. You're custom milling this stuff, and you know, we're just having it shipped up here. But that was a question from like from an actual like feasibility standpoint. You know, you start partnering with people around the country. I know obviously the best way to go is common carrier, and you know, a crate of all the trim to come in one shot. I'll be the first to admit that I have failed at that pretty much on every job, I believe. I'll take ownership.
There's some good phone calls.
I'm like, hey, Ryan, you think you could ship me another 16-footer?
No, I think it's one of the projects where we had this tractor trailer having to go under a train trellis and like up this windy road. And it was an 18-wheeler. And it was like, hey,
for
Nick,
my job?
I think so. I think it was your job.
It was a train trellis.
Like an overpass. I think like there was height restrictions on the tractor trailer, and somehow it was a learning experience on our end too. We probably should have done a little bit more.
Well,
research.
I remember I definitely picked up. I remember I met one of the guys in like a Walmart parking lot and unloaded him into our van.
One of our guys?
Yeah.
I don't think I
No, I
that.
don't know. I'm sorry. It was like one of the like it was like UPS or something like that.
Oh, gotcha.
They were like, "Hey, I'm at Walmart. If you want to come pick up your trim," I'm like, "Sure." Like, no problem. But where I was going with that is, I mean, obviously that becomes a nuisance, and that goes from being a profitable sale to, you know, something that is just a killer, I would assume. Is, you know, as you guys look at partnering with builders, obviously like you're growing, and I think that will just continue to grow faster and faster. Is there a world where you partner with other mill workshops or around the country, or do you think you'll always kind of hold it in New Jersey and ship?
We're definitely seeing demand in certain markets where we have explored that. So we stock 90 plus profiles. The mill that we work with, they have minimum run orders that they require for us to take. So when we put material on the ground in our warehouses in New Jersey, we're basically maximizing the quantity that we run is getting us the highest yield, the lowest priced product to put on the ground, right? So we take in very large volumes. We stock it at 4 of our stores. When we look at a lot of these projects around the country, when people reach out to us, they're not calling us and saying, hey, send us a 7.5 inch base and a 4.5 inch casing and a 4.5 inch crown. A lot of the projects that we get called in on become pretty intricate, where you're looking at, 8, 9 individual profiles varying in quantities. And so if we wanted to put materials on the ground, like it's not like we have one cookie cutter molding package that gets shipped out. So it'd be difficult to say for a lot of people to say, yeah, I want to make that large of an investment to put your molding on the ground in a warehouse, pay for all that material, and hope that I see projects coming through.
Yeah.
Certainly scalability, of course. Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to have our profiles on the ground across the country, but it kind of takes a special client, somebody that specifies our molding profiles, somebody that's looking for something that's unique, somebody that understands the look and the feel is different than just putting commodity trim profiles into it.
Is it is it really that lucrative to be doing that? It seems like it's a lot of work.
No, it's putting we pick up material, like we stock, we put trim in the shed today. We take it out, we put it on a millwork van, and we drive it to job sites, all over New Jersey and New York as it is. And the only thing that we don't control is that offload. right? We put it on the back of a van, whether it goes to Florida or Utah, or Washington State. That time in between is just time. It's on a pallet. It's wrapped up. Somebody on the other end has to take it off. That's the only negative, that we don't have our own team, which we pride ourselves on here locally, is that any materials you're purchasing from us, it's a Kukin employee. It's somebody that's been around for a long time. It's somebody that's generational. God forbid there's an accident. If something gets damaged, our own guys are going to go right back to the yard that day and come back out. And we have a higher level of service. When you have molding profiles, the end user is responsible for offloading it off the truck. But that happens all day long with furniture. There's more and more common carriers. There's more and more sources nowadays. So when we talk to people and we communicate that was like our biggest talking point early on. Hey, just so you know, you're going to have to unload this. And, I think the reactions we're receiving is, that's fine, whatever. It takes a couple of guys to unload a molding order as it is anyway.
It's funny, locally, I don't want to give up their name because I'm kind of making fun of the process, but they don't deliver. So everything you have to go and get. But if you want delivery, they have a handful of guys with vans. And we had one project where it's like we just didn't have the time to go pick the stuff up. So we called one of these guys with a van, and he must have had like the shortest, Dodge van that they sold. And he pulls up and all the trim is hanging out the back, like 6 feet plus, just hanging out the back with a little red flag on it. And I'm like, this is like a cowboy. You open it up, he's got stuff everywhere in the van. I'm like, I mean, it got here, but it's different from what you're saying. It's like they basically own it on the shelf, and after that, it's up to whoever.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've developed packaging over the years. We have had issues where cross docking. If we're not paying attention and we have it, something might get cross docked in Illinois and get picked up by another smaller carrier along the way. We've had issues where there's been damage because somebody's just grabbing a forklift on the pallet. If our guys weren't paying attention, didn't block it properly, or just felt like, they'd done it one way in the past with no issues. But if somebody sticks a fork in it, we'll get that phone call. Hey, I have 8 pieces that I need that are damaged. That's where we, take that on the chin. But no, it's definitely, there's inquiries every single day. I think we had 8 units ship out today, which is awesome. That's just business that, our core business is selling here locally, New Jersey, New York. We really partner well with our local building professional community. When people call us up, they're treated just as if they're going to be that next lifelong customer. And it's fun. I mean, for our own team to know that we're this privately owned company that's shipping something around the country, it's kind of cool. You say something to people and their eyes light up like, wait, we just put a rail car of material out to Salt Lake City. Like, that's pretty cool. So there's a little bit of company morale that gets people excited about that it's not just that every day here in the office. There's bigger picture stuff that we're working on as an organization to make sure we keep growing.
So what about for people who don't, or who are unaware of your molding line? Like, how do you develop it? What's different about it when people think of molding? Yeah, I can go to whatever lumber yard and I can get whatever I need. What's different about the molding, your traditional or classical molding line, as far as the design, but also the materials?
So the design, the history behind the design is that early, I think in 2009, it was about a year-long process where we developed a collection. But early on, we studied the Historic American Building Survey, which is part of the WPA, when they were in the Depression of the 1930s.
Was that Roosevelt?
I think it was Roosevelt. Yeah, Roosevelt, WPA. Look at you, Tyler.
Well, works, progress, something.
Right? Yeah, it's not just the blonde hair. You have it all. You have it all.
I think that they used to WPA, that as a joke, they used to say we poke along.
Works, progress, administration.
Yeah. And there's a whole
not to be confused with the Women's Prison Association.
No, we didn't utilize them for design influence. But on the WPA, they have they recorded all of these historic homes in the U.S. in the 17th and 18th century, and you can go on. You can take a look at these really cool old mantles and these casings and these base moldings. And so we downloaded all these files and isolated those profiles. But they were hand drawn, and they weren't really to scale. I mean, they were to scale, but they weren't really enough to take a drawing and go to a mill. So then we reached out to Brent Hull, Hull Historical, Hull Homes, Hull Millwork down in Texas, and knew that he was a historic molding and millwork expert, and said, "Hey, can you take a look at our existing molding catalog and classify and categorize these profiles to help us tell a story, to differentiate ourselves in the market?" At the time, a lot of people were starting to stock MDF, and it was pure price point. Like there was nothing unique about the designs that were being launched in the market. It was kind of like a race to the bottom where everybody was selling MDF. Who could sell MDF the cheapest? And we looked at it and said that's not a race that we want to be in. We've always believed that there's higher quality options out there. And so we spoke with Brent. He helped us to develop this collection of 75 plus profiles at the time. Drew them all up: crowns, casing, base moldings, panel profiles. And then from those individual collections, from those individual profiles, put them into 6 different collections, some packages of moldings. And so there was an early American style, a Georgian Federal, Greek Revival, Colonial Revival, and Traditional Revival. And so right off the bat, right there when we launched the collection, we could simplify the molding selection process with designers and homeowners, because rather than looking at this book of 2D drawings, we could say, do you like an early American where it's really simple? It just has a simple bead on it. Or do you like this Georgian molding profile, which are really big and bold and they stand off and proud from the wall? And you could see like they would follow certain paths. And that made that selection process a lot easier. We didn't have to, stand in the showroom for 2 or 3 hours trying to make selections. So that was one reason why people really gravitated towards us. And if you download the catalog from our website, you can read the stories about what each collection means. But then the other important thing was, these designs were really thoughtful. Moldings, the most important things with moldings is shadow lines. And without a shadow line on a molding, there's no story to be told. So if you were just to take a 1x4 board and put it around a door, you'd have your quote unquote casing, but it'd be very simple and not very exciting. But when you mill profiles in, or you put a back band on that 1x4, all of a sudden there's depth, there's dimension, there's a component that it draws your eye in to say, okay, what's going on over in that opening? I probably want to walk through there. And you can elevate spaces with molding profiles, define important openings, in a home, or you can simplify things. And so those shadow lines, to us, we didn't believe that we could achieve the designs that we found in the Historic American Building Survey and the designs that Brent Hull had drawn up for us in CAD, in MDF, or in pine. So we found a poplar mill that could achieve those designs, near perfect to the CAD files, to make sure what was sketched out, what was drawn up in a CAD file, was then milled. That spec was held. And so when you look at our profiles, once you start to look into moldings a little bit deeper, you'll see that a poplar profile just looks different than a pine or an MDF profile.
And that's because obviously MDF pine are softer, so you can't have those edges and those deep shadow lines,
exactly,
because they're too fragile.
Correct. Yeah. Like MDF, you want to, if you look at an MDF catalog, you'll see most of those profiles are super thin.
Yeah.
And that's
like
because
rounded over.
Softer edges, because they're going through high production, high volume mills. And the deeper you cut, the more likely the MDF block is to fur, non-technical term, but almost like fur up a little bit. So like MDF, if you look at it, people love it because they say it's really smooth and it's clean and it paints really well. but you're not getting the depth and the shadow lines. So you're giving and taking. Like MDF is totally acceptable. We sell a ton of it. But if you're looking for something that looks more custom, that looks more high end, there's another option out there. And very few people know about that around the country because they're only exposed to pine or to MDF because that's what they can get in a big box store, or, you know, even most lumber yards nowadays, they get through distribution and they just take whatever is in the catalog, whatever they can get at, you know, high volume, low cost.
I mean, even the finger joint, so it's finger jointed poplar, which is nice, right? It's paint grade. So the finger jointed one is going to reduce cost, but also it's going to make it stable and straight.
Yeah. It's funny. There's been projects where people, because of the connotation of finger joint, that people have experienced with pine over the years, and some pretty poorly manufactured finger joint pine, when they hear it's engineered, it's finger joint poplar, it's like, nope, not coming to my project. And if you look at our Instagram, there's a strength test where the joint fails at 1,100 pounds of pressure. That's you know, I think the minimum standard is 750 pounds of pressure. They'll pull profiles off the line and they'll test to make sure that glue joint is that strong. You know, the wood fiber, if you were to take one of our Cove molding profiles, like KB379, and I should do this again, but I put it out in the yard and I jumped up and down on it a few times and it broke at the wood fiber before the joint did.
Yeah.
So the fact that people still have this belief that, you know, a finger joint product is an inferior product, and yet there's engineered products out there everywhere. There's engineered products that hold up the
engineered structural.
Yeah. And there's a molding where all of a sudden, it's a finger joint and it's, you know, it's going to go around a casing. But poplar as well. Poplar doesn't bleed. It's a non-resinous.
It's also more stable. So like when I first started using it, I would have issues in a lot of the older homes that we would renovate because we wouldn't be doing a full renovation. They'd want a trim package, and like the houses aren't conditioned well. They're 100 years old. They have radiators, so like it's just harsh conditions for finger jointed pine, and it moves. So in the wintertime, like once the heat goes on, it's going to shrink across the grain. And I had issues with installing pine in these old homes where it would look great, and then wintertime, everything would shrink up, and then I'd go and caulk it, and then the next season, the same thing would happen.
Yeah.
And when I started using the poplar, like I'm not going to say it completely mitigated all of that, but it was like it was a normal amount of shrinking. Like I wasn't getting 3/16 of an inch at the ceiling. And at that point I was like, okay, I'm selling this on every one of my projects because this is one less thing that I have to deal with. And then you tell the client, well, listen, come spring and summer, it's going to go back to where it was. So you just have to live with, like, that's not a really good selling point for a client.
Right.
So the stability of it was huge for me. And then like, I remember having a conversation with Nick when you started sending me samples, and I was like, my clients at this point weren't willing to spend more than they were willing to spend. And all of my clients were very price driven at that point. And the conversation with Nick was like, how am I going to integrate this into my projects? And he's like, you just have to do it. And I always had to find an angle to sell it. And when you started sending me foot-long samples, and I would put them next to a foot-long sample of a similar profile of another manufacturer that was finger-jointed pine, it was just like you could feel the difference between the two. And that was so easy to sell to clients, where it's like, hey, this is what we want to install, and this is what everyone else wants to install, and here are the reasons why we want to install this. And it just was so much easier to sell at that point when they could actually see it in their hands, not only visually how it looks different, but then how it actually feels different.
It's funny, like I feel like we don't, especially as builders, we don't utilize physical samples enough. Designers, architects, like they have a slew of materials. They're constantly ordering samples of things. And as builders, I feel like we spend so much time just trying to explain why we do what we do or why we use what we use. And Tyler, the exact reason why we switched, it's like, I got a box of 12 inch samples, just like you said. And it's like, when you feel and see the difference, it's clear for me. And here I am trying to explain to a client like, hey, you should do this because I said it's the right thing to do. Where it's, well, show them. And I think, Ryan, we've talked about this offline about like, even like going back to content, your highest performing content is the stuff that they get to see how this stuff's put together, how it's built up, what it looks like, because it's not a render and it's not a final photo where though, like, a render is fake and a final photo is, of course, it's going to look good.
Yeah.
It's like, show me that it looks good in progress.
I think I was just thinking that when you're talking about physical samples, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the Instagram account became so popular, because we show so many mock-ups, the build-up, and so many building professionals have that aha moment. Even good remodelers that's never had a chance to do a boxed cornice, probably never thought about how it gets put together, and they see that and they're like, oh, I can do that. Of course it's going to take more passes around the room, but it's no different than doing a panel on the floor, right? You're still going in the room just as many times, and you just happen to be up on the ceiling. And I think to break it down, and when people see beauty shots from us, it's like, wah, wah. Like, no, that has nothing to do with molding anymore.
The caulk and paint make it what it ain't.
Exactly. So it just seems like everything else, but
it like you said, even if you guys aren't familiar, go online and look up, like, within your catalogs, the molding design, I don't know what it's called, the molding design catalog or whatever, but you can go and, like, that was huge for me on projects where it's like, you want to integrate new moldings into your project. Here are all the moldings that they've already designed that go together and that work together. So you're not like, hey, I like this baseboard and this crown molding or this casing. It's like, we've already determined what goes well together. And depending on the size of your openings, depending on your ceiling height, like, we offer multiple different sizes in those profiles where they're scaled to the same actual size as far as the profile beads, all that stuff. And for me, that sold jobs that I don't think I would have been able to sell if I didn't have access to that information.
Yeah, I mean, we believe in the collection, of course, but we also, at the end of the day, are in business to make sure that our customers become profitable and more efficient. And so we don't want to be interior designers, but that's why the molding design guide, we put about 60 or 70 different options that at least get you to a starting point. And you're more empowered, because nobody teaches, very few schools teach classical design anymore. I don't know, a handful of universities teach molding design to architects. What trade school teaches molding combinations, or why would a crown go with a casing and a base molding collection? And so we believe that a little bit of education is going to get the people that are excited about it, that want to build better. They're going to see that, they'll gravitate towards it, use it as a tool in their back pocket. And we definitely have seen that, successful. And to your point, it's that aha moment. Molding shouldn't take 3 or 4 days to make a selection. You get your crown, casing, and base molding figured out. You hit 90% of the molding selection on your project, right? Then you put a feature room, you do a coffered ceiling and a great room or a dining room and some wall paneling and some wainscot details, and you're good. But if you can lock in the crown, the casing, and the base, you're pretty well set on your molding package for taking that decision out of the mind of the homeowner or that client that just gets so bent out of shape.
Guys, real quick pause on the podcast. Make sure you head over to moderncraftsman.co. That's .co. Hit the subscribe button in the top right. That brings you down to sign up for our newsletter. Why do you want to do that? Well, it's going to keep you up to speed on episode information, additional information, and also all of the live workshops that we've been hosting. We've now hosted a handful with hundreds of people showing up, doing live Q&As, talking about case studies, really getting into the nitty-gritty of helping you build a better business. So like I said, head over to moderncraftsman.co, join the newsletter. It's free to do so, and we are bringing as much to the table as we can there. So hope to see you there. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent on what you just said. So a lot of people don't understand where to start, right? Or how to develop this stuff, and they're reaching out to you, and that's potentially a red flag for you guys to, put together their molding package. And obviously there's, plenty of people, especially through social, that are, teaching this stuff, talking about it. Brent does a great job. But is there consideration, or maybe you're working on in the background to, you know, you're explaining your the pamphlet earlier and how you can kind of look through it and understand the premise behind it and build a collection around that. But to take it a step further, is there a world where you could build, I don't know how to, I mean, just from like a tech perspective, I'm working on a project. And enter some guidelines and kind of develop this digitally, where it's like, all right, well, based on what you're inputting, it sounds like this is what makes sense. Here's a rendering, and and we can ship you a sample box of these profiles so you can see it. Is that, I mean, I guess where I'm going with this question is like, how do you bring that barrier of entry down to make it, get rid of the red flags, right? Like, get rid of the constant human work of, designing something and putting this more into the hands of, a more novice contractor that wants to do the right thing, but just simply doesn't understand it. And rather than spend the time of, I'm not discrediting that, the benefit of understanding molding profiles and the history of that, but I think someone would feel more obligated to learn that if they were, kind of getting to the result faster, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No. And I think the molding design guide that Tyler was talking about on the website, that has full house packages ready to go. And while we're not I mean, I've tried looking at some of these in-house render apps where, they'll say, hey, put a couch in your own space. Me personally, I don't get too excited about it. It just doesn't feel the same. I think that there's still, when it comes to molding, because it is so permanent, there is that component of finding a local finished carpenter with a box of samples and putting mock-ups on the wall. Like, there is something about that experience that I think is still going to be in play. So I think the molding design guide is a starting point for people. It's tough to try to explain how the whole catalog works and how we've categorized it. But if you look at different casings in each of the collections, you'll start to see that there's certain patterns in our collections that people will say, I really like that style. I really like the simple modern craftsman style. That's a craftsman style. It's a little bit edgier than normal. Or like the Georgian molding is like a really heavy, it just looks more like traditional. So I don't know. I think there's going to be significant changes in AI design and renderings that are going to help people, make decisions faster. But until that happens, for us, it's supporting the community and supporting the builders and the remodelers and the designers that, again, it's about collaboration for us. The stronger we are as a community, obviously it helps us if we can educate more people on our website and through our molding catalogs, and they get up to speed on molding and that, interior designers, we're getting a lot. I did a guest a panel out at W Design with Marianne Brown out at her office in Salt Lake City, and tremendous feedback from the interior design community that, they're not educated. Few are educated on molding design, and the excitement that came about in that community from that talk is just, we continue to see people saying, hey, I never knew this existed.
Yeah.
So, if we can support a segment of the market that they can provide for their families, and they can, make extra money by providing resources and design. I mean, we're all for it.
Yeah. I mean, contradicting to what I just said, the understanding the basics, or understanding the reasons as to why moldings are used, or any product, right? Like, when you start understanding, how something works, or why it's used, or, it, in my opinion and in my experience, it puts you into this like tunnel vision of really digging into the benefits of doing it, quote unquote, right. And from building science to trim, where it's there's like there's a sense of scale. Like I can think of projects that I've done earlier in my career, and thinking back, I remember being in them like I just don't feel like the scale's right, and frank, and it wasn't. We had tall ceilings, short baseboard, tiny little crown, and it didn't feel right. Where it's like fast forward, we finish. We actually worked with you guys on our Back Bay project.
Yeah,
and
I just saw that again.
Yeah, and it was 7-piece crown molding, tall baseboard, panels were scaled. I remember going through the exercise of scaling where the height of the panels. It's not this steadfast rule. And when you start to understand those, what's that? God, the arc,
the order,
the golden triangle.
Neither of those. but similar. It's the.
You better watch out.
Oh my God! What? I'll look it up. But when you see how that helps you understand scale, and you step back and you look at the difference, it's like, wow, that is exponentially better. It's gonna drive me crazy.
I know the one project. Well, I mean, we've done a bunch of projects together, but that blue project that we did together, Ryan, the ceiling height in there was super low.
Yeah,
we were building bookcases over an existing fireplace that we were covering, and long story short,
that's on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, but we had to scale everything in there to work appropriately because we put so many built up moldings and a full cornice in there, but we didn't just take what you had on your website and use those proportions. We scaled everything down to fit. And I still all the time, those photos will come up of what that room looked like before and then what it looked like afterwards. And actually how much it looks like we've raised the ceiling just by scaling the cabinetry, the mantle design, and all of the moldings appropriately. It looks like we added so much in there, and it looks like we actually made the room bigger and made the ceiling height taller by taking the time to actually lay things out appropriately, which is a really neat exercise. And I think it's difficult to explain, but if you are able to juxtapose those two images, and actually it's something that I'll probably do here, follow up to this podcast, but just how much different and how much that can actually do for the room, where it's like, oh, this room can't bear that amount of moldings, and it's like, no, it actually can if it's done correctly. That one.
Look at that in your shop.
Yeah, man,
you look so young. That was 5 years ago.
Youngster.
Look at that, cutting that crown with that Capex. Woo.
That was a fun project.
That was 5 years ago.
I know.
That was Fine Paints of Europe, right?
The
blue. And you did that all yourself?
Yeah, that was I did a lot of work at that house. What about the other thing that I wanted to switch gears and talk about some, because it's something that is
catenary arc.
No, that's not it. It's look up the golden rule, or look up the golden rule.
This one, hold on.
Catenary. No,
that's what it. That's what it pulled up. This thing.
Yeah, that's a gold. Google the golden rule.
I think the golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated.
Golden. You mean the golden triangle rule?
I'm pretty sure that's the golden. You didn't think I knew that one, did you?
Yeah, the golden triangle is different. That's a 3-piece. Yeah, draw a diagonal line from one corner of the frame to the opposite.
So what the beauty of Kukin Brothers is that we're just not hardcore historic.
No.
There's a lot of these rules that exist, and if Brent Hull is the man for answering all these questions, we know just enough to get dangerous, but still have fun and not be judgmental. Save the judgment for Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd rather judge you.
Last thing I'm going to say on that is that you were just speaking about the interior designers and the excitement behind learning these things. And that's very relatable to me, because I can recall when I first started digging in this with you and really digging into the history of it. And even something as silly as they were creating knives to match moldings, like the buildup and the age on the moldings were actually altering the knives, because it's like, yeah, there's 100 years of paint buildup, and
Yeah.
what used to be these really sharp, clean lines now are not. And just like understanding how the molding and the design of moldings and how we progressed in
Degraded.
American,
Yeah.
like quote unquote architecture. I remember
Mhm.
learning what you guys were doing and the products that you're putting out and the history and what Brent did to develop all this stuff, and just being super pumped and super excited to learn about it. And it honestly, it opened up like a different level to my business where I could really differentiate myself, and I had access to something that nobody around me at that point had access to, whether it was
Mhm.
knowledge materials. And I feel like it really did open the door to a lot of business growth for me, and just the excitement around it. And I think if other people, like you said, those designers out there were exposed to that, I can absolutely relate to that, because it was a really fun point in my career, experiencing all of that and learning about all of that.
Yeah. It's fun. The
Go ahead.
Golden ratio.
yeah. Perfect. That's it. Is that the one you were talking about?
It is, but there's a name for that arc, and it's not catenary, and it's going to drive me bananas. But it's the golden ratio.
Golden ratio. Yeah.
So something that I wanted to discuss with you, because it's right up our alley right now. You went to school for marketing?
Yeah.
Or
Communications. Well, I'm not going to tell you because you're going to make fun of it. So it
Theater.
doesn't matter. I
Theater.
finished in 4 years. Today, my career is in marketing and communications. So that's what matters.
Marketing to contractors,
Fibonacci.
Fibonacci,
Oh,
the sequence,
Fibonacci
the sequence.
All right.
That's
Well done, Nick.
I thought that was
Rest
with music.
easy.
wow. That took 8 Google searches for me to get there.
not bad.
I feel like marketing to contractors is completely different than, I mean, there's certain rules that apply, but I think that it's a very unique art to be able to market to contractors, and Nick and I are learning that. And it's something that you tried to, I guess, make us privy to 10 years ago, and we just didn't have the bandwidth really to devote to it. But now that I'm going through a lot of this and understanding marketing, and everything that has to go behind it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what Ryan spoke about. That's what Ryan spoke about. How did you really develop your marketing system for Kukin Brothers? Because it's not like you're marketing. You would think it's just a lumberyard, right? People who are around me are just going to walk in the door, but it's much more than that.
So to be as corny as you were early on in the podcast, in all seriousness,
we're going to edit that out. Honestly, I just put that to make you feel good. There's no way that's going in the podcast. I already sent Doug an email.
So when I first started in the industry, I had worked here in Summers, loaded materials, but really when I started, I didn't know too much about the products that we were selling, or the customers, who to speak to, who not to speak to, or how to speak to people. But what really made I view marketing as storytelling. And the story that we needed to tell was a story about Kukin Brothers and who we were. And I firmly believe that without the professionals that I work with here, the sales team, the operations team, the ownership, without having a legitimate story, like I never felt like I was coming in telling a lie or telling a story that I didn't believe in, because people were genuine here. They loved what they did. They really worked hard at finding solutions for our customers. And so my job never felt like a job. And I know it sounds kind of corny, but really, I mean, I walked in, it was like, yeah, no, I can talk about the high quality experience that people will have if they come to us, instead of going to another retail store or another, big box store, that our employees know things that others don't. So first and foremost, like anything, you need to truly believe in the story that you're telling, and that it's not just to it's not for a quick
It has to be
gain.
authentic.
It has to be authentic, and it's a long game too. We don't look for sales. We're not going to sell 25% off just to have a blip in a spike in our sales, so we can go back to our shareholders and say, look what we did. We raised profits. We gave something away. We raised sales, but we reduced profits. But so I think the genuine storytelling is an important component to it. One thing we also did is we never looked inside the industry to replicate what other building material suppliers were doing. We always looked outside the industry and we're inspired by other product categories, other lifestyle brands, clothing companies. We would look to see what they were doing on their social, what they were doing on their websites. So we didn't just copy what other people were doing.
Why did you think that was going to work for your industry or for what you guys do?
I don't know, because I think there was frustration. Like when we were first launching websites 20 years ago, within 6 months, our website would be copied and replicated. And it was
no
like
names.
No name. Yeah. I forget. Yeah. You know way too many secrets, Tyler. You can get me in trouble.
Somebody better clear that DM history and Cucumber.
But so I think, I don't know why. It just felt like in our industry, we were a little bit slower to adapt to things. And then once somebody did something, everybody would copy it.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was like, how do we completely transform the message into something, just make it look totally different. And then keep doing that. So it was like, hey, we're gonna change this. We're gonna go to market with an e-newsletter campaign, or have a live event, or go on Instagram. And the minute that we start seeing other people do it, we bounce out and we find something else. So just as other people would start catching up, they'd have to pivot and go and do something different and learn something different. And then they would catch up and we would change how we communicate with our customers. And I think, that having the support of the ownership here of the Cukin family to just say, go and change your messaging and tell our story. It might be a little bit unorthodox. But I was fortunate enough in my career early on to just say, I trust what you're doing. You're not going to sink the ship, but get our story out there. So I don't know. It's 20 years of stuff. We're constantly changing and evolving. Are we doing it the right way? I think we're hitting pretty much every single angle that we possibly can to communicate to somebody. We're certainly leaving some things out. There's a lot of opportunity to grow. But the one thing that I would recommend is just, basic blocking and tackling first and foremost. One of the first things that we did was make sure that everybody answered the phones. People would answer the phone. I'd walk around and it was like, Cukin. It wasn't like, good afternoon, this is Tyler Grace from Cukin Brothers. It was like Cukin. And then you go somewhere else, it'd be Cukin Lumber. And then some people would just be like, hello. It's like, hey guys, can we all just try to have standard answering the phone, try to make that experience similar. Let's all wear logoed Cukin Brothers gear. Let's all have business cards.
That's one of the.
It's funny because you guys are a small lumber yard, but you hold a level of professionalism and even the marketing and the branding. It's almost as if you have a bigger company behind you, right? Where it's like, hey, we've done this before. We have built and established so many companies. These are the rules and the guidelines. Where it's like you think of the small lumber yard that's similar to your size. And it's normally just a bunch of guys who are contractors who are showing up, not looking super. It's like basically contractors selling building materials. And you guys are not like that at all.
Yeah. And that's the people though, right? Like we can say this is what we're going to do, but if people are like, I'm not going to get behind that. So if you don't have a management crew or location managers that hold people accountable, it doesn't work.
What's so interesting, because I'm a huge believer of that. Like I've told the story before, but I had a new architect we were trying to do work for, toured him on our project, And I was like, hey, I'll be right back. Let me go grab my team and we'll walk you through the project. And everyone came out of the house and everyone's in branded gear. And I remember it was like, he was like taken back. He's like, holy shit. Like you guys look so professional.
Team. Yeah.
And, and that, it was always something I had kind of aspired to do and implement. And I remember, I had the chance to chat with Jocko, and we were talking about the story about when they decided to all be in similar uniform. And he makes this reference of like, yeah, but how badass would it be if everyone's dressed up and it looks like a bunch of stormtroopers? And and he was talking about how his team didn't buy into it. They were like, I'm not doing that. And he got them to understand like the value of it and how quote unquote badass it would be. And when you talk about like the way everyone answers the phone, it's, we're going through it here. We're going through like, hey, I'm not trying to be a micromanager here, but I want the way we email a client to be the same. I want it to be the same experience every single time. And I think it was this book called Oversubscribed that talks about this, but it was they make this reference of a barber, and basically the barber, the first time the client goes in, has this wonderful experience, gets his hair cut, good conversation, pours him a glass of champagne or something like that while he's waiting, like a fancy barbershop. And then the next time he goes in, he doesn't get the champagne, but he gets the chat and he gets a great haircut. And then the next time he goes in, he does get the champagne, but he doesn't get much chat, but he still gets a good haircut. And the next time, then he gets everything again, and he ends up not going to the barbershop ever again. And it wasn't something he decided in his mind that he wasn't going to go to. There was such inconsistency that he subconsciously just didn't care to go back. Yeah. And I can't help but to think of, our industry as a whole. It's what we talk about with pre-construction. It's what we talk about just being a new, younger, and aspiring better contractor, better builder. It really is driven by the customer experience. And it's where, and it's so, there's such micro things in the grand scheme of things. Or, hey, I just need you to wear a branded t-shirt. I just need to answer the phone this way, and create a sense of consistency. So when a client calls, new or old, the expectation's there, and you're either meeting it or you're exceeding it. And it's never, otherwise it's just neutral. And it's like, sure, I'm calling a lumberyard, I'm getting what I need, I'm moving on. Right. Like it wasn't a bad experience. It was just completely neutral.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, think about Starbucks. I'm not sure if you guys ever went to Starbucks early on, and then they introduced the app. The app was giving points for like a free coffee every 10 purchases. Then all of a sudden you realize, wow, this app is super convenient. Like I can order and I don't even have to talk to anybody. I have to pick it up. Mm-hmm. Have you gone back to a Starbucks and have to wait in line for even 2 minutes? And the frustration level of that experience totally negated what Starbucks started as like this really cool. You didn't mind hanging out in Starbucks for 5 minutes. You talk to people, you listen to music, you'd smell the coffee. Now Starbucks, it's a drive-through, but if you have to wait in line, it's like, you start shaking because not because you're anxious for coffee, the experience isn't the same.
But it's funny, now there's no line at the counter and there's a line at the mobile pickup.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's just like 40 people just like circling around the mobile pickup.
And no experience whatsoever. No. Angry. Where's mine? I can't see my cup. Do they call my name?
I was in Starbucks the other day and there was a guy. Weren't. Yeah, dude, I'll send you this picture.
Let's see that hair again.
There's a guy sitting. I have to send you the picture. There was a guy sitting at the end of the table.
Stop sending me pictures, please.
Yeah, I'll send it to your cell phone and not to the Kukin brothers. He had a full secondary oh no, I took a video of him here. He has a full secondary monitor that clamps onto the table. He's got headphones, a keyboard, not a computer keyboard, an actual keyboard.
Music.
Yeah, like composing music in Starbucks. And I was like, I forgot about it till you just said something. But he's definitely enjoying his time in Starbucks.
So maybe it's just me.
Yeah, it must just be you.
No, I have my Nespresso machine.
Yeah, dude, this guy's like fully set up. I thought he was a permanent resident there. So how do you stay ahead of that's something that we're also experiencing where it's like as soon as you feel that you've gotten to where you need to be, you can't let off the gas. You need to keep moving forward. You need to evolve. How do you continue to do that? Like, where are you drawing inspiration from? From a marketing perspective.
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge that we have in our industry is just the pure amount of products that we stock and that we sell. So every day, there's never been the same day from a marketing standpoint. Like we don't come in and do the same exact thing every single day because we're educating employees, we're trying to communicate with customers, we have a new product coming in that we're learning about, we're working with purchasing. So I would say the number one thing in marketing that we've always struggled with, and we're trying to put processes in place now, is just that creative calendar to make sure it's consistent.
Yeah.
So like whether the message is the same every January, what you need to do to execute, because you guys will start to create really cool stuff. You'll spend a ton of time on something, you'll launch it, and then you run away from it, and it's like, wow, you'll feel like you're doing it all over again every single January, every single February. But just have to keep, in this industry, we're slow to change. Be consistent and create that calendar and know what you're going to do. And that'll free up so much more time for you to get creative, to look for other things, to test other areas, maybe do an interview series on YouTube. I don't know exactly what, but just change up the way that you're presenting it, but don't just do it once and run away. Keep trying, unless you feel that there was such a visceral reaction to what you did, then take it off the list. But if it's something that, the reaction was positive and, you got some good feedback, plan on doing it again. Don't reinvent the wheel.
How are you using AI with marketing, Ryan?
So far, just more written. So we have the benefit of working with a lot of product manufacturers, Andersen Windows, Boise Cascade, Engineered Wood Products. A lot of those manufacturers have a lot of their own content. And so we've been looking at AI and just finding ways to, and they're totally cool with us repurposing their content because they know we're selling their products.
Yeah.
But we don't want to just copy their stuff verbatim. And so we'll utilize AI just to reposition it, reformat some of the text, consolidate it, and create campaigns. But that helped us. We had a really busy year with our product expo, which obviously, you all were part of that back in 2016, but we had a ton of things happening this year. We had to change the location. We were looking to hire a new marketing assistant role. Amy, my colleague, was getting married in the middle of it, and so she was out of the office for a little bit, and we were kind of stressing out.
No, literally, her wedding was in the middle of the expo.
It was.
Ryan married them.
Moment of silence.
Streaks walked her down the aisle.
Yeah. Stop it.
It's a hell of a show.
That didn't happen. But so we were actually, we kind of took that as an opportunity to say, let's see how we can streamline some of the communication flow. And I would say hopping onto AI and understanding that helped us save a significant amount of time on some tasks that would have been otherwise time consuming, had to get it done, but not super impactful to the grand scheme of things, a part of something.
The expo is every 2 years.
It is, but don't put it on your calendar.
No, but
your time is done.
Yeah. I'm just trying to budget for the next couple of years.
Hold on. I do want to, because Ryan, I'm scrolling Instagram the other day, and that Mawa hotel,
shutting down.
As it came across my feed,
I know that
within a millisecond, I was like, I know that hotel. And I stopped, and it's like it's being demolished. And I remember being there. What?
Yeah.
It's such a I'm sure it's a bigger story, but it's like in such a random location. It's in my opinion, it's like so prominent for that location.
Yeah.
And there's just and I out of all places in the country have been to this hotel in Mawa. And there's an article written about how it's being demolished. I'm like,
yeah. I know.
Why?
Yeah, the Sheridan Crossroads. It's always been. I think the story is that it's on an old Ford factory, so there might be some environmental issues. So I think they were trying to develop it. The facility had gone through numerous ownership over the last couple of years, but yeah. So out of nowhere, I wouldn't say out of nowhere. There'd been rumors that they were going to knock it down for about 10 years, and then finally, a year before this expo in 2024. They called a year in advance and said, "Hey, we're no longer booking anything." But we should go back because that's where the name Modern Craftsman started.
And I feel like we should just go hang out there for like a night.
We can probably get
pour one out. Oh, you want to go back to the start of all of this?
Yeah, just let's go hang out at
No, I'm saying Ryan, like he wants to dig into that right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Modern Crafts. That's where it started.
Tell.
Yeah.
So I mean, you obviously go ahead, Tyler.
No, so the initial panel discussion was going to be Nick, myself, John, and you had KOC. Was that the year KOC was?
Sean Van Dyke.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Sean Van Dyke was the moderator.
And what was your idea behind that?
That was that, and that goes back to the Instagram story where all of a sudden I saw these. We were getting a lot of questions from our customers, like, "Hey, your website's really cool. Can you help me build one?" And it was like, "Well, building a website is not really what we do, but you can call this guy or that guy." And then all of a sudden, Instagram came out, and I was like, "You don't really need a website as a builder. You just need a way to document your process." And then you all were putting your work on there. I think. Some of the things at the time when we were like, how are we going to get people to come to our expo? A lot of people were sharing like how they keep, this is sounds silly, but how do they keep a job site clean? Mm-hmm. And everybody was using the air scrubbers and job site protection. And I was like, wow, like just that alone, showing that alone to a customer is really impactful. That separates you as a not typical, experience with a lot of the trades that people have negative connotations over. And so you two gentlemen, John, were three accounts that I was following and kind of communicating with behind the scenes. And then it kind of hit, was like, you know what, let's call this event the Modern Craftsman, right? Because you're utilizing social media to tell your story. It was the Modern Craftsman and building your brand through social media. I think that was the name of it. And then Sean Van Dyke at the time, he was also a trim carpenter as well, or working for a trim carpenter. So I was like, the four of you guys, let's get on a panel discussion and just see what happens. And that was we had people from, I'm not sure how many different states come to that show.
It was like 500 people registered to that. I remember you telling us the numbers.
Oh, more than that. Yeah, no, we had the pre-registered, I think like 2,500.
No, I mean just our talk.
Oh, just to your talk. Oh, yeah. No,
I remember you being like, "Hey, there's 500 people showing up." Meanwhile, I think at least from my experience, I had never talked to anyone in front of. I hated getting up in front of the classroom, and I remember. I mean, TMI, but like my stomach was not well leading up to that event.
That's right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was like, for us, it was like, yeah, we nailed it. I really didn't think about your feelings at the time. No. It was like, God, you guys are going to nail this.
Okay.
You guys
I was like, Tyler, I'll be right back.
Yeah. And so that's where it also, and then you guys, kudos to you guys. You guys kept the ball rolling on it. You guys could have just ended there and kind of ran away. But Instagram, you guys continued. There was some kind of cool community connections for a number of years there. It kind of fell off. It got a little saturated. It's not the same, but I'm glad that we were part of that for that early on. And I think that there's still some nationwide lifelong relationships, not because of our event, because of Instagram, that you can call anybody now for the rest of your career and say, "Hey, do you remember that, back in 2015? And people would answer your phone call in a heartbeat.
Well, I'll give you the kudos. I think that you took what everyone was doing on social and then said, "Let's do this in one room." It was the most surreal experience.
It was funny
because I remember getting off stage and people were just like we're all talking. Everyone's like, I know you from Instagram, and I'm like, this is so freaking weird. Like,
it was weird.
And I don't think we even made it to the show. I remember being stuck in the lobby for hours talking to everyone. To everyone. And from that point, you're absolutely right. Like we said, we went on to launch the podcast, but we have since thrown events, and it's like, this is, that's really what, at least for me, like opened my eyes to, hey, what we're doing on social is so much bigger and grand, more grand than, what we think it is. And the amount of people that we aspire to help and acknowledge, I mean, that was 2015, 2016, I think was a huge, redirection of our industry in terms of how people shared and collaborated. I remember early days of, I had one guy reach out to me. He had shared a tip. I was doing something on my house. He shared a tip on how to do it better. And then I went on to do my whole house. And then I shared it with someone else, and I shared it publicly, and I got he was not happy. He's like, I shared that in confidence. I'm like, why the hell do you care?
Yeah.
If the next guy knows how to do it, like, isn't that the whole point? And I remember I was like, he's like, you guys and your social media, like this used to be everything used to be private. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, this old house has been doing this for like 40 years. You know that, right? Like on TV, like, you know, Tommy learned something. He's showing it on TV and teaching someone else.
Yeah. Did you hear recently that, and I don't know how true it is, but I had heard that private equity is looking into like plumbers and HVAC.
They're not looking into it. They are buying.
They're actively acquiring. I mean, think about that. Like back in 2015, it was so fragmented, and I don't.
Well, I don't think it's a good thing.
Because it's pure profit driven.
It's short term wins for these guys. Hey, I'll give you $2 million for your 5-person HVAC company. Yeah. Like that's for a lot of these guys, and for many people, like that's a ton of money, and that's life changing.
And they're out of the industry,
and they're out of it, and they take the $2 million and whatever they do, but they're buying all these up, and then they become a conglomerate, and then then the service sucks. You don't get the service.
Yeah. But that happened. But that happened to us too, right? Like when the rise of Home Depot, Kukin grew and expanded, not to the same level, but when that happened and all these little mom and pops are going out of business, was an opportunity for us to grow and expand and say, hey, we have something that, people are like, oh, Home Depot is going to come and eat your shorts. It was like, well, no, our company, blew up exponentially in that same time frame. So, could that raise the bar for the industry? Again, I don't know. It's probably not a great thing, but the fact that there is that kind of interest in it is hopefully telling and pulls more people into the industry for better or for worse, but we certainly need it. We need more exposure to our industry.
Yeah. I mean, we've been saying this for a while now. We're losing people faster than we're gaining people. And it's not, we're not going to correct that. But what we can do is we can support innovation, more than we have in the past. Mm-hmm. I think,
go ahead. Go.
Just from my business alone, it's, I told the team at our end of the year sit down, it's like one of my goals 5 years from now, I want us to be in a full shop drawing process for every house we build. And basically utilize as much offsite construction as possible, streamlining the onsite construction, reducing, management on site, reducing time on site, and really leverage the opportunities that exist, because there's thousands of factories out there that are producing parts and pieces and assemblies that we could be leveraging instead of, I don't want to say wasting hours on site, but frankly, figuring, design building everything, and go through a formal process of actually, manufacturing these, still very custom homes, but doing it in a way more efficient manner.
Yeah.
Brian, is your renovation complete? Almost.
I'm trying to think of the next question you're going to ask.
I was just going to ask how that entire experience was for you. Like, you have an older house.
Yeah.
You guys.
So
you were going to renovate or something, and then you decided to move instead. You bought a house and remodeled it in the neighborhood you were living in.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. We moved 4 houses down, personal house, 100-year-old house, and wound up doing a full gut and renovation. The experience was awesome. It was actually unique, experience for us because it was a father-daughter duo. The contractor was well known for working on a lot of older houses, and his daughter had graduated from college, I think a couple of years, maybe only like a year or two prior, and had fully integrated technology into the business. And so my wife's an accountant, and for her, that workflow worked really well, where I could talk about the products and give a little bit of guidance, interior guidance. For her, the workflow, the communication flow with the daughter was like next level. So it was a blend of technology with a guy who was experienced in 100-year-old houses, and a great experience.
That's cool. We actually, on one of our courses that we developed, where it's like part of understanding and segmenting your market and who you should be spending your time on, focusing like your lead generation, your marketing, and all that, and understanding like what people's buying qualities and what's important to them.
Yeah.
And like that's a real thing for a lot of people, is to be able to integrate that workflow and the decision-making process and the communication.
It's huge.
On like a highly technological level. And that's not important to everyone, but for some people, like especially with families where you have both parents working and young kids and there's zero time in any day, that's really important. So what were they using for that?
Oh man. It was
like a construction management software.
Yeah, construction management software. It had been, if you throw a couple names at me, it's been a couple of years.
It's not, I mean, it's
but it was Co-Construct.
Oh, okay.
It was Co-Construct. But just seeing workflow decisions, line items on there, decisions that had to be made for us to be able to sit down on a Sunday night together or a weekday night and just go through it and say, hey, by the way, this week we have to do this together.
Yeah.
We both work. We have 3 kids at home. We paid more money and made a decision to go with them, knowing because of the way that they presented the project to us and their estimating, their bidding, and the workflow in the bidding process to us, that was super important. We had that conversation. I said, hey, Chris, I see this happening myself in my industry. So I know that there's going to be a lot of polling, and I think it's important that it's transparent to you. And she was like, yeah, no, absolutely.
How many contractors did you guys interview? 3, 4?
For this specific project, it was 2. We thought we were going to do a renovation on our first house, and then, had architect plans drawn up, and then wound up. So we went through the bidding process with, I think, 2 other ones there. So ultimately, to get where we were today, it was like 4. But it was tough because in this industry, we know a lot of people.
Yeah. What were the other considerations like that made you choose one road versus another?
Well, so truth was, you were the other consideration, but I was really worried about
dodged a bullet there.
I was worried about the experience my children would have and having to deal with
you don't want that. You don't want that.
So that's why you didn't get the job. It was just communication. Honestly, that was for us. That was the most important thing. It was communication. And the one contractor had a better workflow that we felt would work for us.
Are you happy with everything that you did? Like what's something, is there something that you wish you would have done differently on the project, where like now that you guys are in there?
No, we pulled out certain things. I think the one thing which everybody regrets,
not
in New
have
Jersey,
diesel paint everything.
Diesel's my dad, and he was recently retired and was looking for stuff to do. He did a great job. He did a great job. He didn't do the whole house.
We had him do the closets.
He did the second floor. I wish we would have dug out the basement, right? There was like a budgetary thing. We dug out the basement. We could have gone through the full addition, and we wound up going with like a 4-foot. But other than that, we
underneath the addition, so you just have crawl space.
It's a 4-foot high crawl space.
Do you guys have a full basement under the original house?
Yep.
Is it finished?
And then we added on. It was, but we gutted that and restructured some things.
So are you going?
You're not going to get you're asking a lot of questions.
Listen, the permitting permitting office is not going to watch this. Did you guys finish the existing basement?
Yeah, it was already finished.
It was already finished, but then you gutted it. Did you redo it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Is that like the kids' playroom?
It is. Yeah.
I'm with you, Ryan. He's asking some.
He's not going to get the invite.
No, I'm just curious. I'm curious as to what. I mean, I don't know I knew the scope.
I liked
of
it
the
much
original,
better when the fire. What was that place called? The fireplace was open on Route 17, and I could meet you I could meet you half an hour away from my house. Yeah, I'm driving up to the lake house, Ryan.
No, I know where you live. Remember, I picked up I picked up trim at your house the one time coming back from the lake.
No, when we went up to Kevin O'Connor's house, you and I drove up there. Remember that we did the one day.
Yeah, but then
you guys drove home that night too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember. Were you gonna stay, or and then you were leaving? You're like, we're just gonna drive home. I'm like, it's 6 hours.
Stay. Yeah,
it was a 6-hour journey. Yeah, we got up there. I think we checked out a couple job sites. Then we got stuck in traffic leaving because we thought Kevin was in like downtown Boston. He was like an hour outside. Yeah, and then we hit rush hour traffic, so it was like a 2-hour journey.
Yeah.
No, one time you brought molding to your house, and I was at the lake or something, and on my way home, I just swung by your house and like picked it up out of your driveway.
Well, I was home.
I think you were home, but you told me you weren't. Outside. You told me you weren't. I saw the blinds peek up. It's like, damn. You told me he was at his neighbor's barbecue for Labor Day weekend. Like, dude, why is there a grill going in your backyard?
That was from the other neighbor's house. That wasn't me.
Did you guys keep your renovation like pretty period correct, or were you not that concerned with that?
No, that was important to us. So we gutted all the molding. We put in all of the classical molding profiles in there. A 9-inch baseboard was important. 4.5-inch casing, crown molding. We kept plaster in the front of the house because we did a lot of plaster. I know plaster is pretty common up by you, Nick, in New England. I mean, we're almost 100% drywall down here, but 100 years ago they were still doing plaster lath. So we kept plaster where we could because we just, for whatever reason, that texture of plaster was just kind of had this like really cool look and feel. Some places we just couldn't keep it, but where we
did, you re-insulate those walls?
Not in that front dining room. We had the option to do the blow-in, but I don't know why we cut it out. Yeah, probably would have. It gets a little colder up there, but
yeah, it's funny because I like plaster everywhere but in my own house. I'll go in somebody else's house. I'm like, this has got so much charm. And then my own house, I'm like, it just looks like shit. I feel like there's a crack here. There's something that looks like there's like part of a piece of food underneath this part over here. Well,
that has nothing to do with the plaster.
Somebody just painted over it.
That's hygiene.
Yeah.
Speaking of houses, where's your house coming along?
Close to permitting. I got hung up with approvals and then just like work, life, busy, trying to get all that stuff together. I feel like it's just like anything else. You start a project, it's really exciting, really fun, and then life shows up and I'm like, I have a million things to do while also obviously I'm handling that. So trying to split my time, keep things moving ahead, trying to save as much money, obviously handling a bunch of the design and layout and stuff like that ourselves. So one of me and not enough time in every day.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait to come and visit.
We have a design completed for the most part. And I have a site layout submitted to get grading and all of that stuff done. I guess it's one of those things where it's like, do you ever feel like you're ready to move ahead with it? And it's like every time that I look again, there's something else I want to change or do. And I'm like, is this always going to be the case? And I feel like it is.
I think what hit me too was like our daughter's going to middle school next year. And it's like, whoa, how did that happen? Like we first moved into a house and we didn't have any kids. And now we have a kid that's going to be in middle school. Yeah. That's what, 5-6 years left until they're potentially rocking and rolling. So I know we're all in the same boat here with our age of our kids. And that's where I think it's like, get rocking and rolling, start making decisions and make changes to enjoy your house. And, that to us is important.
I mean, we had a beautiful house before we sold it. And we've been in the house that we have now where it's like we were, all right, we'll spend a year and then we'll start a renovation. And this past September is now 3 years. And it's literally like a 1970s apartment grade, like the stove has 2 burners that work, and I think one of them doesn't really work. And my wife's like, Nick, we can't live like this. I'm like, I know, but there's no point in fixing it because I'm just gonna we're gonna tear it all out. And she's like,
yeah,
it's been 3 years, and I got she sent me a TikTok this morning. I'm like, this is something about what I've done. So let's see what it is. And it's this girl literally crying. She's living in an RV because they're currently building their dream house, and she's crying because she can't live in an RV any longer because it's constant mud and dirt, and there's kids and animals, and everyone's on top of each other. And I'm like, that's not fair. We live in a bigger house than an RV. It's just, I understand where you're coming from, but it's like, for me, it's like, I just don't want to do anything because I'd rather do it all in one shot and have it be what I want. And I'm coming to the realization of like, that may just not be something that I ever can do in one shot, especially, or not now when my kids are 2 through 8 years old. And this is going to be a prime time for us to live in a more comfortable home. And maybe I get it 80%, 90% of the way there rather than just sitting at 0.
That's what we did. We definitely scaled back some things. And now 3 years later, it's like, all right, we can, a little bit more money in the coffer, and we can fine tune things, but it's definitely paralysis by analysis because you know way too much, but you can walk into beautiful places when you guys go on vacation, and there might be some things you judge, but for the most part, you're like, yeah, I could see myself living here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just got to kind of,
do you know what the mindset of my kids are getting older actually did for me? I was like dead set on building, hey, this is going to be our forever home. I want to have everything here. And then I realized at this point, like, our forever, quote unquote, Selby is in 6th grade. So like 6 years, she's going to be a senior in high school, right? Tilly's in 3rd grade. So 9 years. In 10 years, we won't have kids in the house, like at college. Maybe they're still home, whatever. But like 10 years is this forever that I'm telling myself. And I'm like, the longer I wait, like
the less that forever is.
The less time they're going to spend here. But also, like, I realistically only need to be here for 10 more years. And then if we want to make a decision to do something else at that point, I'm not necessarily tied to where we are right now. And I'm like, do I want to be spending all of this time to make this happen, to build this like golden egg, or am I okay with just like a house and some privacy for the next 10 years?
Your kids don't put size of rooms in perspective.
No.
Like, think about growing up. You went over to friends' houses. You never judged the size of their house or what.
I have one friend. I have one friend I judged.
Judged or envied?
Envied.
But it's one of those things that's kind of like, it's more about the experience. If you guys are happy and they don't care about the size of the room or what tiles are in there, all
Diesel painted it, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they
it's
love
a cool story that your grandpa painted.
You're still talking. He didn't paint the whole house. He painted a floor.
Doesn't matter if there's paint all over everything.
Yeah, he cleaned up.
Your
he did
grandpa
really well.
Painted it.
It's going to turn into he.
How many people can say that?
That is a good perspective, Tyler, because like, as you're saying that, I'm realizing, when my kids go to school, or like, what if they don't want to live in Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Like, and they move down somewhere where it's warm, and then Meg and I are like, why don't we just follow them? Like, both your kids leave. They live on the West Coast. It's like, what, you're just going to chill with Rachel on the East Coast? Like,
the forever is not necessarily.
You're probably
forever.
Following your kids. All right, fine. I'm going to go home and demo my house tonight.
Do it.
And just start,
I like it.
All right, Ryan, appreciate it. Oh, how's the puppy?
Oh, not good.
No, what happened?
Not good.
Nice.
I've never heard someone say not good about a puppy.
He's a year old now, totally untrained, 100-pound lab, eats socks and gloves, and he's creating a lot of tension between my wife and I. And suddenly it became my dog.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was hers, right? Yeah,
it was ours. It was a family dog, and now it's your dog. So no, we love him. He just needs some training. Norman is
that's amazing.
Norman is old man Norman.
That's funny.
I love
appreciate
when
you.
dogs
Go ahead,
have
Nick.
human. I was just gonna say, I love when dogs have human names. There's one
Yeah.
in our neighborhood, Doug, and then another one. I think his name is John or something like that.
That's
Like,
great.
John, come here. It's like it's amazing.
Yeah, that's us, Norman. We're yelling at old man Norman for eating our socks.
God.
So
We appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy.
thank you guys. This is great. No, there's always time for you guys. This was fun. We as an organization, I mean, we really do. We love what you guys are doing. We really appreciate it. I know it's a lot of time, effort, and energy, and a lot of time that I know that you guys were not necessarily being compensated for early on. I know you guys probably don't talk about that, but I recognize that you guys were just doing it for the love of the industry for a long time. And I know you guys made a lot of sacrifices. And so we all appreciate that because you definitely are raising the bar.
Right.
And it's important. So yeah, we're glad to be a part of it, and happy for the friendship that we have with you guys.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Dude.
Not you, Tyler. I was talking to Nick.
Thanks, Ryan.
I was just thinking how I need to start wearing a collared shirt with like a vest or something over top.
I'm so hot. I have a sweater.
It looks.
I have a
like
sweater.
Yes,
but it's
perfect.
But it's the uniform, so you can't take it off.
I can't take off the uniform.
What have I done?
Logo.
Yeah, man. All right,
Ryan,
dude. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it, you guys.
Ryan's good shit.
I like him. He's funny. Every time I'm with him, I'm like just laughing the whole time. I definitely have like the ball busting relationship. I feel like it's like the brother relationship.
Yeah.
He does have a brother named Tyler.
Does he?
Yeah, and I'm always like, that's such a dumb name. Why was your parents name him Tyler?
I've always appreciated how honest he is. Like, we did some content for him a while back, and I had followed up with him. I'm like, hey, how did we do? And he's like, honestly, didn't hit the mark. I'm like, oh shit, okay. I was like, I didn't bring it up today. I was going to. I'm like, I feel indebted. So we have a project coming up that we're actually specifying all his trim, and I'm already in my mind. I'm like, all right, I got to over deliver on this. I want to make sure I hit exactly what he needs in terms of from a content perspective. But yeah, I mean, without Ryan, I don't know if there would be a podcast today. Like that first event that Tyler, myself, Johnny, and Sean did. It's like, at least for me, I feel like that was the moment we all said, let's do something. So.
Yeah. I mean, even just progressing through it and questions. And I mean, like from a relationship perspective, Ryan's dealing with a lot of the companies that we deal with and within our industry on a daily basis, and understanding how to navigate that from our perspective and what our value is, and him being like, dude, you need to charge more money for this. Like, this should be more. It should be at least that. Like, I feel he's guided us and helped us grow with regard to just who we are and what we're doing. So I do bust his balls a lot, but I definitely appreciate and value all his insight, his relationship. And yeah, like, just, he's very matter of fact when it comes to a lot of that stuff. And I've had the same experience where we've had partnerships and he's like, yeah, I'll be honest, like, I don't know what the return was on my end for that. And I'll be like, noted. He like, hey, can we try something else? Right? Are there other options? Are there other deliverables? Let's mix it up some. Or just, hey, this is what I need from you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think that it's a really good quality to have.
Yeah. If you guys want to check out his website, kukenbrothers.com, KUIKEN brothers.com. You can check out everything he's got going on, including that classical molding collection. If you guys if you order some samples, check it out for yourself. But I'm telling you, if you want to step up your game in terms of finished carpentry and design quality, I mean, that's going to be a huge edge, I think, in your arsenal. And as you heard it here in the podcast, he'll ship nationwide. We'll see you guys next week.